The church smelled like rain and lilies. My mother's casket was a white boat in a sea of black suits, floating beneath stained glass windows that threw soft color across the pews. People whispered my mother's name as if it might break. Margaret. I watched my father, rigid as a statue, a leather folder clamped in his hand like evidence. He hadn't cried. Not when the lid closed. Not at the graveside. Not now. When the final hymn faded, he rose, cleared his throat, and walked to the pulpit. "Before we go," he said, voice steady, "Margaret asked that we read her will together." A murmur rippled through the room. Who reads a will at a funeral? And then the kind of hush you can feel. My father stepped off the stage and pressed the folder into my sister's hands. "Emma," he said, "your mother wanted you to read it." Emma's fingers trembled so hard, the metal clasp clicked. She looked at me, gray-green eyes wide, and then at the first page. Her throat closed. She shoved the folder toward me. "Please, I can't." I didn't want to be the voice that made anything final, but I owed my mother courage. I opened the folder and found not just a will, but a packet bound with a blue ribbon, and at the top in my mother's neat handwriting, to be read aloud. Beneath that, a second line. "Let the girls read." My voice shook on the first words. "To my family, if you are hearing this, it means I've done my last earthly task, making sure the truth takes care of you after I no longer can." A sound moved through the pews, like fabric rustling all at once. My mother had always been gentle, a librarian who remembered everyone's favorite author and left cookies on neighbors' porches. Gentle but never weak. As I read, her quiet strength filled the room. "I have not left the world with perfect answers, but I have left a plan, Robert." I saw my father's jaw twitch at his name. "I loved you for the best parts of you, but I cannot pretend the worst parts did not shape our family. I hope, with all my heart, that this plan gives you a way back to us, not a way around the truth." Emma's breath hitched beside me. I kept going. The legal portion was simple and ruthless in its clarity, written in plain English as if my mother were shelving it in the for everyone section. The house and its contents would go to a living trust managed by Emma and me together. We were to decide what to keep and what to sell, with one rule. The house could not be used as collateral for anyone's personal debts. A bank account at Keystone Federal, opened 7 years ago in my mother's name alone, contained a rainy day fund. "It poured on us for a long time," she'd written in the margin, almost like a joke she wished she could tell in person. Those funds were earmarked for the girls' future education. A safe roof, a start that isn't borrowed from fear. 10-0 to the public library for a children's reading program in her name. My mother's wedding ring to Emma, because you always asked to try it on. Her pearl earrings to me, because you never did, and I wish you had. Her recipe box to both of us. Make a mess. Invite people over anyway. Then came the line that made the room go perfectly still. "My husband, Robert, is to receive $1 and a sealed letter, with the remainder of his inheritance contingent on his proof of treatment 90 days of a certified gambling addiction program, verified by the court-appointed trustee. Completion would unlock a modest monthly stipend from a separate account, so long as he remains in recovery and abides by a budget created with the trustee." A choked gasp broke from somewhere behind me. My father didn't move. "This is not punishment," my mother wrote. "It is accountability. I tried quiet. Quiet did not save us. If love is real, it must include limits that protect the people we love." I took a breath I didn't know I'd been holding, because every word was true. For years we'd lived on tightropes strung over past due notices. Dad's promises to stop just after this last hand, and Mom's gentle distractions to keep us from seeing the cracks. We saw them anyway. "Girls," I read, and my vision blurred. "I am asking you not to rescue your father with money. Do not pay his debts. Do not pawn your future. I carried too much, so you would not. If you want to help him get help. That's the only help that helps." Someone started crying openly. I kept my voice level and turned to the sealed letter addressed to my father. I looked at him. She wanted this read aloud. I said, careful, because I didn't know if he would let me. He met my eyes, and for the first time all day, the mask slipped. He nodded. I slid a fingernail under the flap. Robert. I read. We were 22 and sharing a single pot and 2 plates in a studio with a view of the brick wall. You took me dancing in the living room. You spelled my name in pancake batter on Sunday mornings. I still have the love notes you left in my lunch. I also have the loan notices I kept hidden in a box so the children wouldn't see. I know both versions of you. The man who taught the girls to parallel park in an empty lot, and the man who taught himself to disappear into a casino between 6 and 9 on paydays. A shiver went through him. He blinked twice, hard. I am not angry in this letter. I was angry while I was alive, and I told you. I am tired now, and I want to rest. If you want a share of what we built, it must be through change, not charm. I have arranged it so you can't sweet-talk your way back into the same hole. Not because I hate you, but because I love you enough to tell you the truth where everyone can hear it. I heard a soft sob. It took me a second to realize it was Emma. To the girls, I continued, I'm sorry for the nights I said it's fine when it was not. I'm sorry for asking you to be brave for me when that wasn't your job. You were children. You deserved childhood. If you feel angry with me for staying, that's a fair feeling. If you feel relieved that I have left a plan, allow yourself that too. Rage is not disloyalty. Relief is not betrayal. Both are just the body telling the truth. Let that truth make you kind. To yourselves first. By then, the pews were a chorus of sniffles. Our pastor stood with hands folded, eyes closed, as if he could bless a letter. Practical things, my mother wrote next, and it made a few people smile through tears, classic Margaret, to pivot from heartbreak to logistics in a single breath. In the hall closet behind the snow boots, there is a blue file box with receipts, bank statements, and a notebook titled The Map. Take it to Attorney West. She knows where the rest of the paper trail leads. The rainy day account is legal, clean, and protected from claims, because I learned how to protect it. There's also a key taped under the 3rd drawer in the kitchen. It opens the cedar chest. Inside are the girls' baby books, letters I wrote you each on your birthdays, and the recipe for the lemon bars you always ask for at Thanksgiving. Make them. Keep feeding people. Grief gets hungry. I wiped my eyes to keep the words from swimming. Around us were the people my mother had fed. Neighbors, co-workers, kids she'd taught to read. I thought of all the times she slid a covered dish into someone's hands and said, "No rush on the container." Standing there, I understood. She had been practicing this goodbye for years, teaching us how to take care of each other, so we wouldn't starve on the day we couldn't hear her voice. And one last thing, the letter said. Emma, Grace, tell each other the truth. You are different women, you always will be. But you are also the same thing I prayed for. Sisters who come home to each other. If one of you gets a big life and the other gets a quiet one, do not measure them against each other. Choose each other anyway. I had to stop to steady myself. My sister's hand found mine. Squeezed. If you're still reading, my mother wrote, a little humor elbowing through, then it means I trusted you to carry this moment. Thank you. I want a small kindness from you in return. When this is over, everyone who came today should eat. Go back to the church hall. Tell the ladies to open the 2nd set of trays. I paid for extra. Have seconds. Take some home. And remember me when you cook for someone tired. I reached the last lines. I leave you love in enforceable ways. Boundaries and budgets in a house that will not be traded for a lie. I leave you my soft things. A ring worn thin by years. A box of recipes stained with butter. Letters that smell like the drawer they slept in. I leave you my hope that your lives will be honest, not perfect. I leave you, most of all, the proof that even after a hard story, a family can write a kinder chapter. Put my name on that chapter if you want. Or don't. Just write it. I closed the folder. For a moment, no one moved. Then my father made a sound I have never heard from him, something between a gasp and a cry, and sat down as if his knees had given out. Emma pressed her fist to her mouth. The sanctuary breathed out all at once. Pastor Reed stepped forward. There is food in the hall, he said gently, voice thick. Let's honor Margaret as she asked. People filed out, touching our shoulders as they passed. A retired teacher pressed a tissue into my palm. A neighbor kissed Emma's hair. My father didn't stand. He stared at the floor, hands open, empty, as if waiting for something to land. I rested the sealed envelope, now open, on his knee. "Mom left addresses," I said softly, "for treatment programs. Attorney West is expecting us at 3. He nodded once, still not looking up, and I realized tears were sitting in his lashes. We walked him to the hall. He barely ate. He kept touching the paper like it might burn through his hands. The days that followed were a long, sober, kind of busy. At home, the house felt like it was holding its breath. In the hall closet, behind the snow boots, we found the blue box exactly where my mother said. The notebook labeled "The Map" was her in a nutshell. Dates recorded in careful columns, small stars by the months that had been hardest. Tucked into the back was a list of passwords we didn't even know we needed. The cedar chest yielded the recipe cards, charmed with her notes, "More lemon, don't skimp on zest." The will's legal engine stirred. Attorney West shepherded filings with the practice of someone who had seen a lot of love disguised as paperwork. The contingency for my father was like my mother, both firm and kind. He bristled at first, called it humiliating, accused my mother of controlling from beyond the grave. But the truth was a mirror. He couldn't break this time. The trustee laid out the numbers. The debt ledger looked like scaffolding for a future that never got built. The stipend would cover rent on a 1-bedroom and groceries if he did the work. If he didn't, there would be no monthly deposit, no backdoor into anything my mother had put her hands on. He went to the first appointment, angry. He went to the second because the first counselor asked him a question he couldn't answer. What would you have done if Margaret had stopped paying for your mistakes while she was alive? He went to the third because Emma drove him. After that, he took the bus. He sent our group text a grainy photo of a whiteboard at the clinic that said Day 7 under Robert and wrote, "Don't make a fuss." We didn't. We sent him a lemon emoji and a heart. At the house, Emma and I did the strange practical rituals of grief-sorting drawers, arguing briefly over a sweater we both loved and then laughing because Mom would have told us to split custody. We sold the old love seat with the broken spring, kept the quilt that never matched anything but went everywhere. We stood in the kitchen one night at midnight and ate lemon bars over the sink, powdered sugar falling like first snow, and promised each other we would tell the truth even when it wasn't pretty. The library dedicated the new children's corner on a Saturday. A little brass plaque said the Margaret Lane program. Because stories make us brave. Kids sat cross-legged on a rug speckled with stars while the librarian read The Velveteen Rabbit. When the rabbit asked what it meant to be real, I had to step outside and cry into the sleeve of my coat. Emma followed, leaned against me, and said, "She did this. She made things real." 3 months later, we gathered again, this time around my small dining table, crowded with takeout and flowers someone had dropped off. My father arrived 10 minutes late, sober, wearing a clean blue shirt. He looked older and less armored, like someone had finally set down a box he'd been pretending wasn't heavy. He didn't touch the envelope he'd kept in his jacket pocket. He kept touching the chip in his other hand instead, 90 stamped across a plastic coin. "I read the letter again this morning," he said quietly after we'd eaten. "I think I heard parts of it for the first time." He looked at me, then at Emma. "I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry that asks you to forget. The kind that means I will prove it with my next day. And the day after." We nodded. We didn't give him a parade. We gave him dessert. It wasn't perfect after that. Some days, I wanted to call my mother and ask why she hadn't thrown a plate, why she'd chosen letters and budgets, and patient, stubborn love. And then I'd open the recipe box, or find another note in the map, or hear a kid at the library giggle under the brass plaque, and the answer would settle somewhere in my chest. She chose things that last. At tax time, Emma and I decided to sell the house. Not because we didn't love it, but because Mom's rule "don't collateralize your safety" made sense, and because we wanted to do something she'd never gotten to do. Start something on purpose. We used the proceeds to create the Lane Sisters Fund, a small scholarship for first-generation college students from our town, with a tiny extra for childcare or car repairs. The things that derail a semester, the application says, in language our mother would have approved. The first recipient sent us a picture holding her acceptance letter in a parking lot at dusk. the exact kind of ordinary miracle our mother adored. On the anniversary of Mom's passing, we hosted a backyard dinner. We set a long folding table under strings of cheap lights and invited neighbors, our pastor, the women from church who still bring casseroles no one asked for. We made everything from the recipe box. People showed up with more food than a family could eat in a week. It looked like love. My father came early to help set up chairs. He left after hugging the pastor longer than men usually hug in our town. He slipped me an envelope with his budget, signed for the trustee. "Don't make a fuss," he said, and smiled when I rolled my eyes. After everyone left, Emma and I stood in the kitchen, tired and sticky with sugar, washing dishes in the sink that had seen every version of us, the girls who whispered about the sound of Dad's car in the driveway, the women who read a will out loud and didn't flinch. We boxed leftovers for the freezer, because grief gets hungry later, too. We sat on the back steps and listened to the quiet of a street that had finally exhaled. "I miss her," Emma said. "I do too," I said. "But I feel her, in the boring good ways." We laughed. It felt like a benediction. If you've listened this far, thank you. If you're walking through family betrayal, inheritance drama, or the kind of grief that comes with setting boundaries, I hope you heard what my mother tried to teach us. Love that lasts is love you can live under, not love that asks you to live around it. Accountability isn't cruelty. Financial independence isn't selfish. A budget can be a love letter if you read it right. Tell me where you're watching from, and if you're comfortable, share a moment when you had to set a hard boundary to protect your peace. Your story might help someone else be brave today. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need it. We're writing our kinder chapter, one honest day at a time.